Hello everyone, I'm Lost on Green. Part 1, Candace Owens. Well, I would like to start out by saying that I like Candace Owens, but she still has some growing to do. Is she smart? Yes. I like a lot of her views, but there are a few views I don't agree with, or that wasn't in a book she read. But I hear a lot of my friends are thinking just like her. Candace is trying to enlighten people of all races, and I'm proud of her for having great conversations about everything. Candace Owens had a wedding recently back in New York. She was born in New York, raised in Stamford, and then lived in New York after graduating, for about 7 years. She was born in White Plains, near the Bronx. What is the Candace Owens origin story? First, we wanted to know why Candace Owens changed her phone number regularly and whether it was because of threats. She said she changed her number every couple of years because she didn't want to talk to several people who were texting and calling her, so she just changed her number because she didn't want to tell them. Plus the people are asking her for money. I'm sure the more she grows, family members just go from one number to another. Candace said, yeah. I mean, it's usually not family. It's just random people from your past that haven't spoken to you in forever but still have your number. They'll text you and ask for a favor. That's when the number changes. Where did Candace's story begin? She said, she has a very regular story. She was born in New York, raised in Stamford. There was nothing particularly that stood out in her childhood that made her think that she was going to go into politics. Candace said she landed into politics kind of accidentally, and thought she was a liberal her whole life. She thought she was on the left her whole life and really didn't pay attention to politics in any meaningful way. But, when Trump was running for office, she didn't want him to be elected. She said she was like this, not because she thought he was a racist or a sexist, but just because she thought it was crazy to go from Obama, who had a certain decorum about him, to suddenly this sort of brash New Yorker. But she thought it was weird when all of a sudden, the people that liked Trump, everyone thought he was like this iconic symbol of business. He was in rap songs. Trump was a status blitz. She just didn't buy the narrative that he was in the media for 4 decades and was racist. Suddenly people wanted her to believe overnight that Trump was like Adolf Hitler and a racist, so I just didn't trust the media's narrative about him. And so, I decided to actually listen to what he said. I still didn't vote for him in 2016, but I wanted to just listen to what he said. And then when I saw what he was saying versus how it was being reported, I just found it to be extremely dishonest. So, I started researching more, learning more. Just so, you will know Candace, here are a few reasons people think Trump is racist. No, he is not Adolf. Trump, whose public foray into politics arguably began in 1989, when he pushed for the death penalty for 5 Black and Latino youths, who came to be known as the Central Park Five, after they were, wrongfully, accused of attacking a white woman in Central Park. The 5 men were later exonerated. During the first presidential debate on Monday night, Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton asked viewers to remember that her opponent had started his career with a 1973 lawsuit brought by the Justice Department because he would not rent apartments in one of his developments to African Americans, and he made sure that the people who worked for him understood that was the policy, as Clinton put it. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best, he said. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people. During immigration talks in the Oval Office in 2018, Trump reportedly resorted to using crude descriptors for Haiti, El Salvador, and some African countries, the Washington Post reported. In the conversation, held between Trump and several congressmen, the president allegedly called those countries S-hole countries. A year prior, in 2017, the New York Times reported on 2 of the comments at hand, that Trump said during a session with his national security team that all Haitians have AIDS, and that once Nigerian immigrants had seen the US they would never go back to their huts. Former President Trump made this comment at a 2018 roundtable about immigration in California. We have people coming into the country or trying to come in, and we're stopping a lot of them, but we're taking people out of the country, he said, according to White House records. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people. These are animals. The president called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States in 2015, a day after Obama's address from the Oval Office regarding the aftermath of a shooting in California. The shooter was an American citizen, born in the U.S., and his wife was born in Pakistan but was in the U.S. legally. I guess all these reports are lies. Even though she didn't mention any of the statements that Trump made on live TV. But Candace is saying she got kind of angry just with the lies. Who do you think black Americans are to intentionally manipulate emotionally by the media and kind of kept dumb but emotional and intentionally by the school system? And she started reading up on Thomas Sowell, Shelby Steele, a bunch of black scholars that she originally had dismissed as Uncle Toms. And the irony now is she gets called Uncle Tom all the time. Candace said she got what was coming. But, yeah, and then she realized that actually, she's always been a conservative. She just didn't know it, and she said, economically speaking, of course, the conservative arguments make the most sense. This means, she only changed her vote to tax the poor and not the rich, because she is making millions of dollars. She is not embarrassed by people calling her Uncle Tom because if they read the book Uncle Tom was the hero. But also because she gets it, you know. She said, how can I fault people for something that I would have engaged in for the majority of my life? She thought the same thing about black conservatives, and she thought it was this betrayal, but she never actually understood it. It was just an emotional response. Until she got rich. And she thinks that is kind of it. If you come out of the public school system, she can't imagine how you could be a black conservative when just the way that they even tell us our own history, it's just not true. You know, do you think that that's true with most people though? Like, you know, like when you think of a Trump or just anybody, you're fine with them. But then you learn like their politics. You learn what they believe spiritually. Yeah, and she don't even think it's necessarily the politics. She really do think the media plays the biggest part in it because Trump, as far as she know. Trump's been, maybe he used to be a Democrat. But he's been a Republican, a conservative for a long time. She mean, we know he had to have been a conservative in terms of economics, you know, he's wealthy. So you'd be hard-pressed to find someone that's wealthy and you know advocating for Marxist beliefs yet. She just feel like it's more about the media wants power. The media has a vested interest in things politically and they like to make us think that we're having an open conversation and we're learning the truth about people but diluting the truth to a ton of people to turn against their own best interest. Donald Trump registered as a Republican in Manhattan in 1987. Since that time, he has changed his party affiliation 5 times. In 1999, Trump changed his party affiliation to the Independence Party of New York. In August 2001, Trump changed his party affiliation to Democratic. In September 2009, Trump changed his party affiliation back to the Republican Party. In December 2011, Trump changed to no party affiliation, independent. In April 2012, Trump again returned to the Republican Party. Trump has made large donations to all parties. Were you more anti-media, Candace? Well, no. Once she actually heard what he had to say, she was like, that's a pretty solid pitch. She mean it was his Dimondale, Michigan speech. Particularly he got up there, he just started listing all of the statistics in black America. In terms of poverty, she mean, these were just real statistics that he was talking about, and his pitch was basically like, you've been giving your vote Democrats for 60 years. Why don't you just try something different? You know, she think that's a pretty good elevator pitch. Like, hey, you've been doing the same thing for a long time. Trump is not saying he's amazing, but why don't we try something different and see if it gets better for you? I'm Lost on Green. Thank you for listening, part 2.